Discover the incredible story of a hidden boxing champion, humiliated by hooligans. Her life changes forever. Clara Rivera stood in the boxing gym, the scent of sweat and leather filling the air around her. Each punch she threw into the bag felt like a defiant roar against the world that always seemed to conspire against her. At 22, she was a whirlwind of energy and dreams bigger than the little grocery store her immigrant parents operated. But reality had a way of grounding you, the pressure of economic uncertainty weighing on her shoulders like an iron yoke. The rhythmic sounds of thuds and grunts served as her therapy, a heartfelt escape from the taunts of her tormentors, the local hooligans, who ridiculed her passion. They called boxing a man's sport, implying that she, a daughter of immigrants, was too weak and too foolish to chase after something that brought her heart alive. Yet Clara fought back, the fire in her so intense it transformed mere punches into a battle for dignity. It was July, and everyone in Maplewood was gearing up for the annual 4th of July parade, but Clara was only focused on one thing, the regional championship looming ahead. She trained harder, pushing her limits, letting each drop of sweat speak for her ambitions. She envisioned the day her parents would smile with pride, a joy they rarely allowed themselves given the weight of their everyday struggles. But during one intense training session, destiny collided with reality. There he was, Nick, the leader of her antagonizers, leaning against the gym wall with a mocking grin plastered across his face. Their eyes locked, and Clara felt her heart sink. With a trembling voice, she confronted him, her fists clenched. "You think you know me?" The words sliced through the gym's atmosphere. Before she knew it, their exchange turned into a chaotic public confrontation. Words were hurled, and humiliation hung in the air like dark clouds before a storm. The weight of embarrassment struck Clara hard as she walked away, the whispers of passers-by echoing in her ears. Little did she know that this moment, this pain, would serve as a catalyst for something more significant. People began to rally around her. Encouraging notes appeared on gym walls. Neighbors waved as they spotted her training, sharing tales of their own struggles, drawing lines of connection and solidarity. No longer was she just a fighter, she became a symbol of resilience. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as Clara was preparing to step into the ring, tension flared higher than ever. A bombshell revelation about Nick surfaced. He was not just a villain. His taunts stemmed from deep-rooted pain and a wounded family background that mirrored hers. The bubble of division began to burst. Their small town's wounds were intertwined. Healing meant confronting shared struggles. It was time for the championship, and Clara, standing on the cusp of a defining moment, realized that she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. This was a fight for respect and understanding, for recognition of a community's journey toward healing. As the first bell rang, every heartbeat echoed in the air like a challenge. Clara stood ready, not just as a boxer, but as a beacon of hope in Maplewood's unending fight for acceptance. The stakes had never been higher, and as the crowd awaited the unfolding drama, one question remained. Would she discover the true strength within, or would the burdens of the past hold her back forever? The crowd roared as Clara faced her opponent, each cheer sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. The ring felt like a world of its own, bright lights highlighting the sweat on her brow and the determination in her eyes. She could hear the whispers of her community surrounding her like a protective shield. They were here for her, feeling every jab and cross as if it were their own. In the opposite corner, her opponent looked focused and fierce. Clara took a deep breath, visualizing the fight in front of her. The grueling hours of training, the sacrifices made, all hung in the air. This was her moment, and nothing would hold her back.
The bell rang and the atmosphere shifted instantly. She stepped forward, fists raised, feeling the exhilaration of the fight course through her. The first punch was thrown. Clara dodged it expertly, moving like a fluid dancer, and retaliated with a sharp jab that connected with her opponent's cheek. The crowd erupted into applause, and confidence surged within her. But it wasn't just about winning. With every punch, she wanted to prove that everyone deserved respect, regardless of their background or the paths they dared to tread. Nick's face flashed in her mind, his mocking smirk, his whispered jabs. She had to embody resilience, not just for herself, but for those who had felt the sting of ridicule. Suddenly, she was fighting not only for a title, but for every girl who had ever been told she couldn't. As rounds passed, Clara found herself getting tired. The physical toll was heavy, yet she refused to back down. Each time she stumbled, the voices of those who believed in her rang out in the crowd, echoing encouragement in her mind. "You've got this, Clara!" someone shouted. The final round loomed, and her opponent was still strong, skillful moves flying at her. Clara's breath came in labored gasps, but in that moment she felt a flicker of something deep.
Within, a fire ignited by every struggle she had faced. It was like an invisible rope pulling her ever forward, and she tapped into it. With a fierce yell, Clara charged at her opponent, unleashing a flurry of punches that surprised everyone, even herself. The crowd roared as her fists became an extension of her spirit. Sweat dripped down her brow, but with each hit, she regained a piece of her power. Then came the moment she had been waiting for, a clear opening. With all the strength she could muster, Clara threw a wild punch. It landed hard. Her opponent staggered back, and Clara could see the moment she realized this fight was slipping away. The bell rang, an echo of the climax, and Clara stood there, chest heaving, the world around her fading into silence. The referee raised her arm. The crowd erupted in jubilant cheers. She could hardly comprehend. Victory was tangible, yet what lingered was a deeper reflection. Amid the joy, Clara felt the weight of fights still to come. There was more to this journey than just accolades. With the championship belt clutched in her hands, she spotted Nick in the crowd. His expression was a mix of surprise and something softer, perhaps admiration, perhaps regret. Clara turned her gaze back to her community, beaming. But as the adrenaline began to settle, a new challenge took shape. One that would shake the foundation of everything she thought she knew about strength and acceptance. What would happen when Nick reached out to her, seeking connection after the fight? Would she be willing to bridge the gap between their worlds, or would old wounds hold her back? The next chapter of her life was about to unfold. Clara stepped out of the ring, her heart still racing from the fight. The championship belt felt heavy but empowering around her waist. She basked in the glow of her victory, smiles and cheers surrounding her as if celebrating a festival. Yet, despite the thrill of the moment, unease crept in like a shadow. She took a deep breath, letting the world around her fade for a moment. It was just her and the quiet hum of her thoughts. Nick's gaze lingered in her mind, his expression shifting every second, from mockery to surprise, and now wonder? Could she trust those fleeting emotions? "Clara!" A familiar voice broke through her reverie. It was Tara, her best friend, pushing through the crowd. "I can't believe you did it! You were amazing!" She threw her arms around Clara in a fierce hug. "I just wanted to make everyone proud," Clara replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. "You did, but now, what about Nick?" Tara's voice lowered, almost conspiratorial. "Did you see how he looked? I think he wants to talk to you." Clara's stomach twisted. She had spent years building walls against his insults. Surely they couldn't be torn down so easily. But now, after everything, did she even want to? Before she could decide, she spotted him making his way through the crowd. Every step he took felt like a trial in itself. He was no longer the bully she had known. Instead, he seemed vulnerable, a boy stripped of bravado. "Clara?" he called out, a hesitant smile forming on his lips. "Nick,"
she replied curtly, trying to keep her emotions in check. "You fought really well. I didn't think you'd win," he stammered, shifting his weight nervously. "I came to apologize." Clara's heart raced. The memories of their past flooded her mind, stinging just as much as any punch she had taken in the ring. Why now? Why after all this time? She crossed her arms defensively. "Because I realized I was wrong," he admitted, the honesty in his voice palpable. "I didn't see how hard you worked. I just saw the surface. I thought I was being tough, but I realize now it was just cruelty." His words hit her like a weight, forcing her to consider his sincerity. Everyone deserved redemption, right? But had he truly changed, or was this just an act spurred by her victory? "I don't know if I can forgive you, Nick," she finally replied, the tremor in her voice telling him and herself just how much this moment mattered. She looked into his eyes, searching for traces of the boy who had tormented her. "It's going to take time." A flicker of sadness crossed his face, but he nodded. "I understand, but I hope one day we can start fresh. You've inspired me to look at things differently." Clara felt her defenses crack. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for understanding, but the weight of his past still loomed large. As she turned back to her friends, the excitement in the air was palpable. Yet, amid their celebrations, an ache remained in her heart, a mix of hope and hesitance. What if the scars didn't fade? Could she offer him a hand, or did her own wounds run too deep? With a deep breath, she promised herself she would find the answers. A new challenge lay ahead, one that required courage of a different kind. Clara glanced back at Nick, uncertainty and possibility coiling within her. Could she rewrite their story, or would the past cling too tightly to the present? As she stepped forward, the next chapter of her journey shimmered just out of reach, yet full of potential waiting to be explored. Clara stepped away from the crowd's roaring celebration, still clutching the championship belt. The cheers faded into the background as she stole a glance over her shoulder at Nick, who lingered at the edge, his usual bravado replaced by uncertainty. Tara's voice broke her focus again. "Clara, you really knocked it out of the park. Everyone's talking about you." Tara beamed, her excitement palpable. "Thanks, Tara. It feels surreal," Clara replied, forcing a smile. The thrill of victory was quickly overshadowed by apprehension. Could she truly embrace this moment, knowing lurked beneath? "Don't think about Nick. Just enjoy this," Tara urged, nudging her friend playfully. But Clara couldn't shake the weight of their past. You have the potential to change everything. What did Tara know? It was easy for her to speak of change when every interaction felt tainted by years of hurt. Clara watched as the crowd celebrated her triumph, and yet her heart beat inconsistently, like a drum caught in a storm. "Hey, I'll be right back," she said to Tara before slipping away toward a quieter corner of the hall. She needed to breathe, to think. Was forgiveness something she could even consider? The air cooled around her, contrasting sharply with the heat of the arena. The wild cheers echoed behind her like a distant thunder. "Hey, I'll be right back," she said to Tara before slipping away toward a quieter corner of the hall. She needed to breathe, to think. Was forgiveness something she could even consider? The air cooled around her, contrasting sharply with the heat of the arena. The wild cheers echoed behind her like a distant thunder. Clara leaned against a wall, closing her eyes, letting the moments of defeat and triumph swim before her. Memories of her past raced in, days spent bruised, both physically and emotionally. "Clara, wait!" Nick's voice sliced through her thoughts, and she forced herself to remain still, heart pounding anew. He stepped closer, tentatively, like a boy searching for trust. "I just wanted to say you're incredible. You've always been more than what I saw," he said softly, his words unshielded by bravado this time. "I'm different now, I promise." "Different how?"
Clara challenged, her voice steadying. "What do you want from me?" "Honestly, just a chance to start fresh. I know it'll take time, but you inspire me. You've opened my eyes." She met his gaze, searching for any remnants of the boy she once feared. There was sincerity there, yet the road to trust felt daunting. "I don't know, Nick." Her voice faltered slightly. "Trust isn't built overnight." "I get it. Just let me show you," he said, hands raised in defeat. "I'll prove it. Just give me a chance." The warmth in his voice began to melt her defenses, yet doubts snaked through her mind. Could she really move forward with him? "Once bitten, twice shy, right?" she muttered, unsure of how to proceed. "More like once beaten, twice stronger?" He smiled weakly, trying to lighten the heavy air. Without thinking, Clara let out a small laugh. "Maybe you're right, but we're not in a fairy tale, Mick. Life doesn't just rewrite itself because we wish it so." "True, but you're already rewriting your narrative in that ring. You faced your fears and grew. Maybe we can do the same." Hearing his reasoning struck a chord just deep enough to resonate. "Okay, one step at a time," Clara finally agreed, though her heart tightened with uncertainty. "But don't expect it to be easy." "I wouldn't dream of it." Just as they exchanged tentative smiles, Clara's phone buzzed. The screen flashed with a notification, a headline that caught her attention. Her name was there, pronounced as the champion. But as she scrolled down, something unexpected jumped out. A rumor surrounding the upcoming tournament and challengers she didn't recognize. "Clara!" Tara called out again, pulling Chula. Clara back into the moment. "You should come and—" "Wait," Clara raised a hand. "I need to read this." The sense of competition was intensifying, but what did it mean for Clara now, at this crossroads with Nick? Would the next match propel her into something greater, or unravel the delicate thread she was just beginning to weave? An unsteady future loomed ahead, its unpredictability both exciting and daunting. One thing was certain, Clara wasn't just fighting for a title anymore. She was fighting for herself, for her history, and for a chance at something new with Nick. As she took a breath, bracing for what lay ahead, whimsical thoughts tugged at her. What if the next battle was more than just another fight in the ring? What if it became a battle for all of them to find redemption? The buzz of possibility filled her. Uncertainty and potential coiled together, sparking something else she hadn't anticipated, a challenging but hopeful journey ahead. Would she have the strength to face not just the ring, but her past fears and glimpses of a shared future with Nick? Clara's fingers trembled slightly as she stared at her phone. The article teased her with names of formidable foes, names she didn't recognize, but that sent a chill coursing through her. Each one bore a record that screamed intimidation. Yet she felt a flicker of determination battling its way to the surface. She had faced giants before. Every punch she had taken had only made her tougher. "Clara!" Tara's voice pierced the fog of her thoughts again, and Clara turned to see her friend approaching with an excited urgency. "Did you hear what I said? They want you for interviews because of your win. You're in the spotlight." "The spotlight," Clara echoed, the fear of that light washing over her. It was one thing to fight. It was another to be thrust into the limelight, where every move would be watched, scrutinized. She felt a knot form in her stomach. "You should embrace this," Tara said, grabbing Clara's hands. "You've worked hard for it. This could open doors to a whole new world." "Or open up old wounds," Clara replied, glancing back at Nick, who was observing them from a distance. A heavy silence lingered between them before she added, "I'm not sure if I'm ready for all of this." Tara studied her, concern etched on her face. "You've been ready. This isn't just about the title. It's about showing everyone what you can truly do. They need to see you, Clara, all of you." The weight of Tara's words almost made her crumble. As much as she wanted to shy away from the glare of attention, she also sought something more in herself, permission to be brave, to rise above what held her back.
A voice in her head whispered she could do this. She could confront not just the ring, but everything that had haunted her. Taking a deep breath, Clara turned back to Tara.
All right, I'll do it. Great! Tara's excitement spilled over like an uncontainable wave. Let's celebrate! You're gonna crush those interviews! But Clara could still feel the tension coiling in her chest. She wasn't entirely sure what lay ahead. Could this really be the change she wanted? Could it finally be the moment she stepped into her power, unafraid and unashamed? As Tara pulled her towards the crowd, Clara hesitated. Tara, what if they don't like me? What if they remember what happened before? Her voice trembled at the thought. Then you remind them who you are now, Tara declared confidently. You're a champion. You're not that person anymore. We all change, Clara. You have to trust that others can see that too. With her heart racing, Clara took a hesitant step forward. The sea of faces seemed to blur together as anxiety swelled inside her. Yet she also felt a quiet strength flickering, like a candle in the dark. Suddenly, she caught Nick's gaze again. He smiled at her, an earnest, genuine smile that seemed to offer a lifeline. In that shared moment, Clara felt something shift within her. Maybe facing the tumult of her past didn't mean she'd drown in it. Perhaps it was the weight of those experiences that had forged her into the fighter she was today. With renewed energy, Clara approached the group, the championship belt still resting heavily against her hip. They cheered louder as she entered the fray, excitement blending with pressure surging through her veins. She felt the adrenaline kick in, every bit of doubt wavering as she realized that people believed in her, even if she wasn't sure she believed in herself yet. But just as she began to engage with the crowd, another buzz rang through her phone. With frantic anticipation, she glanced down and her heart dropped. A new headline flashed across the screen. A rumor about a potential opponent who had a notorious reputation for bringing champions down. Clara's breath hitched. Was she ready for this? In that moment, she felt a storm brewing, both thrilling and terrifying. She wasn't sure if she'd be able to keep the strength she had just found. Was she walking into the ring or entering the realm of her own insecurities? As the weight of the moment settled on her, Clara understood one undeniable truth. She was not just fighting for a title, but for the very essence of who she was, a woman determined to redefine herself. Would she be strong enough to tackle what lay ahead? Would she turn this potential showdown into a fight not just for the championship, but for her dignity? The future gleamed ahead, dark and turbulent, echoing the sound of a bell ringing somewhere deep within her. With a mixture of nerves and excitement, Clara took her first step. What awaited her on the other side? The crowd buzzed around Clara as she felt a mix of energy and dread. With each cheer, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. The weight of expectation pressing against her chest. The championship belt hung heavily like an anchor, a reminder of what she had fought for and the battles that lay ahead. As she stepped deeper into the gathering, she was acutely aware of the cameras pointing her way, each flash illuminating the fear in her eyes. What if they only saw her past? What if they couldn't see the fighter she had become? She could feel people's stares, their whispers like sharp winds cutting through her resolve. "Clara, over here," a voice called from the sidelines. It was one of the interviewers, a charismatic man with a slick smile who seemed to provoke both admiration and skepticism in her. "Are you ready for your first question?" he asked, pen at the ready, anticipation building in his gaze. Clara swallowed hard, nodding as her mind raced. Ready? She felt anything but. "All right," he said, his voice booming over the crowd. "You've just come off a huge win. What does it feel like to step back into the ring, especially knowing what some folks say about your potential next opponent?" She clenched her fists, every muscle in her body tense as she deliberated her response. "It feels empowering," she managed, forcing an optimistic smile. "I've trained hard, and I am not just fighting for a title. I'm fighting for every woman who hasn't had her voice. It's more than just a match. It's part of who I am now." The cheers intensified, and Clara's heart raced at the confidence she managed to express. But in the back of her mind, the darkness of the article loomed ever closer. Some say this new opponent could easily demoralize you, Clara. How do you plan to handle that? He pressed, and she could feel a shift in the crowd. The energy suddenly felt less like support and more like a sharp focus on her vulnerabilities. Determined not to shrink back, she paused, searching for the fire within her. I've learned that obstacles can either define you or strengthen you. It might be scary, but I embrace the challenge. Every fight I've faced was a lesson, and I'm ready. Just then, the phone buzzed again. Another alert flashed across the screen. Clara hesitated, an overwhelming sense of dread paralyzing her for a moment. What if they really come for me, she thought. What if they expose the parts of me I'm still hiding from? That fear was quickly overtaken by another thought. What if she took the control back? Clara straightened her posture, her voice stronger. I'm not afraid of what's ahead. I've fought too long and too hard to allow anyone's opinion to shape my path. The crowd erupted in applause, and Clara could feel the tide turning. Maybe they were beginning to see her. Not just the champion, but the woman fighting against the shadows of insecurity. As if sensing her newfound energy, Tara stepped up beside her, squeezing her arm in silent support. See? She whispered, pride flickering in her eyes. You've got this. But as Clara turned back to the audience, her gaze caught Nick's, and this time it was different. There was worry etched in his brow, a protective instinct that sent a shiver through her. What was he afraid of? What had he been keeping from her? Suddenly, the noise of the crowd faded into the background, and Clara felt the enormity of the moment crash over her. This battle wasn't just against her potential opponent, it was against everything she had buried, every fear that threatened to resurface. Do you want to know the truth? She called out, gripping the microphone tightly. The crowd quieted, curiosity drawing them in. Because I've been afraid, she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. Afraid of failing, afraid of what people think. But what I've learned through this journey is that fear is just the beginning. It's time for me to step into my power and embrace every part of who I am. The room erupted again in cheers, but Clara's heart raced with more than excitement. She felt the crack of her past shifting, and cracks that had once seemed insurmountable started to form pathways. Was she finally ready to embrace not just the fighter she had become, but the woman she had always been underneath? The interview continued, but in her mind, another question lingered. What would it take to defeat the shadows of her past for good? As the night wore on, Clara felt both exhilarated and terrified by the steps she had taken. But in the depths of her heart, a new battle began to stir, one she had never faced before. Would she be able to face the truth buried within, or would her past come rushing back to claim her once more? The air crackled with a new energy as Clara stepped off the small stage, the cheers of the crowd slowly fading into a dull roar behind her. Tara's warm presence beside her was comforting, but a weight still lingered, an uncertain cloud hanging heavy over her thoughts. I didn't just talk about my fears, she whispered, half to herself. I let them out. You did great, Tara replied, her eyes shining. You're making them see the real you. But the reality of those words hit harder than expected. Clara had laid bare her vulnerabilities, exposing the inner turmoil she'd fought against for so long. What if they didn't accept her? What if they only saw her past failures, the stumbles she had tried to leave behind? As they walked away from the noise, Clara's mind flickered with flashes of those moments. She could see her younger self, battered and bruised, hiding behind the shadows of doubt. Every punch thrown felt like a question. Could she ever be more? Are you okay? Tara asked, snapping Clara back to the present. They found a quiet corner away from the crowd, and the momentary solitude felt like a breath of fresh air. Yeah, I don't know, Clara admitted, shaking her head as if to dispel the unsettling thoughts. It's just a lot. The fight ahead. And what if I can't back up what I said?
Clara, Tara replied firmly, you've already backed it up. Do you know how many people are rallying behind you? They don't just want a champion, they want someone real. Clara nodded slowly. As supportive as Tara was, the doubt within her refused to quiet. What if her opponent was everything the critics claimed, unstoppable and relentless? What if she stepped into that ring and everything crumbled? Just as the shadows crept back in, Clara's phone buzzed violently in her pocket. Pulling it out, she read the alert that had refused to leave her alone all night. A news article headlined, "The Fighter Who Can't Win." Her heart sank. This wasn't just speculation. It was a direct strike against everything she had fought for. The words felt like daggers aimed straight at her confidence. "Look, they're already framing the narrative," she murmured, showing the screen to Tara. Tara's brow furrowed. "You can't let this get to you, Clara. It's what they want. You've already proven them wrong. Remember that." It was easier said than done. Clara felt the anger boil up inside her. She couldn't let that article define her. She'd been through too much to fall back under the weight of those opinions. But how could she rise above the noise when it felt like it was closing in? "I just wish I knew what Nick was thinking," she said, her heart dropping slightly at the thought of him. His eyes had been filled with concern, and that worry etched into his expression stung more than any punch could. Did he believe in her, or was he worried she'd fall apart again? Tara seemed to sense the shift in Clara's demeanor. "You need to talk to him, you know. Clear the air." "I know," Clara sighed. But the fear of opening up, of potentially breaking apart the only solid connection she felt, was overwhelming. What if he told her he couldn't watch her fail again? What if she wasn't strong enough to bear that? Suddenly, through all the swirling chaos in her mind, one thought emerged with clarity. She could control her narrative. She could take action rather than let others dictate her story. Clara straightened. "You're right. I need to reach out to him. I have to be authentic. I'm done hiding." With resolved energy flowing through her, she grabbed her phone, ready to shoot Nick a message. But before she hit send, the atmosphere shifted. The crowd began to swell again, the announcer's voice cutting through the static air. The next fight was about to start. The tension pulled Clara back into the moment. Could she handle the uncertainty waiting for her? Even wrestling with the impending match, she felt a spark ignite deep inside. Was she finally ready to face every part of herself, public persona and all, and find what she was truly made of? As the first fighter stepped into the ring, Clara took one last breath, poised on the edge of her transformation. But the ultimate question lingered. Would stepping into that ring set her free, or would it expose her darkest fears once and for all? The energy in the arena surged like a wave crashing against the shore, and Clara's own pulse synced with the rhythm of the crowd. As the fighter entered the ring, clad in fierce determination, Clara felt a knot twist tighter in her stomach. This was the moment she'd been both dreading and craving. She could almost taste the briny air of the fear mingling with adrenaline. "You ready for this?" Tara's voice cut through the noise, grounding Clara momentarily. "Ready or not, here I go," she replied, forcing a smile that felt foreign on her face. There was no turning back now. The daunting article still echoed in the back of her mind, a steady reminder of the stakes involved. The announcer's voice boomed throughout the arena, igniting cheers that blended into a single throbbing pulse. Hats were thrown, fists pumped in the air, and Clara found herself wondering if anyone could see the doubt that flickered like a candle barely holding its flame. Nick's face flashed in her mind again. He would be watching. Would he see her weakness? Would he empathize with every punch thrown her way? The fear returned, coiling itself around her heart. She needed his belief now more than ever. Before she had too much time to dwell, the atmosphere shifted, and the first round commenced. Clara's feet moved to the beat of the crowd, adrenaline propelling her forward as the sweat on her brow mingled with the electric energy in the air. The first few punches felt like a dance, chords strumming through a melody only she could hear, her instincts taking over. But then she felt it, the sting of a punch connected to her jaw. The impact sent shockwaves through her body. For a split second, the roar of the crowd faded, and all she could hear was the pounding of her heart. She stumbled back, hands flying defensively in front of her. Was this what failure felt like? Before she could second-guess herself, she took a deep breath. Clara heard the familiar echo of Tara's words in her mind. "You've already proven them wrong." It was time to fight back, to show them the resilient woman behind the mental scars. With renewed energy, Clara retaliated. Every jab she threw, every kick she landed, felt like a tiny victory. And with each swing, she felt the weight of her past gradually lifting. They weren't just punches, they were declarations. She was no longer that girl hiding from her fears. She was a warrior reclaiming her narrative. As the first round ended, Clara felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with exhaustion. She was still standing, still fighting. Tara's encouraging cheers reached her from the sidelines,
a lifeline tethering her to the reality she was creating. But as the bell rang, doubt scuttled back in, burrowing deep into a hidden corner of her mind. What if her opponent was more than she could handle? Clara wiped the sweat from her brow, heart racing. Just as she was about to step back into the fray, her phone buzzed again in her pocket, a disruptive reminder of the world outside the ring. Clenching her jaw, she forced herself to focus. It could wait. This fight was all that mattered. As the second round began, Clara felt every ounce of strength pulsing through her. But the question loomed. Could she maintain this momentum? What if the opponent she faced wasn't just a challenger in the ring, but a mirrored reflection of all her fears? With each punch thrown, Clara had the chance to redefine who she was. Could she truly embrace the strength within without losing sight of how far she'd come? As the round progressed, her heart raced with every blow, and with the weight of the arena upon her, the chant of her name began to fill the air. But the moment of truth was yet to come. Would this fight bring her one step closer to the champion she aspired to be, or would it leave her vulnerable once more, exposed under the glaring lights? The answer loomed, both terrifying and thrilling, as the second round continued. Clara's muscles burned as she danced across the ring, legs pumping with a fierce rhythm that drowned out the cacophony of the crowd. The second round felt like a whirlwind of highs and lows, each blow landing like a drumbeat in her heart. She could feel every eye on her, every cheer igniting a fierce blaze of determination inside. But with that fire came a flicker of doubt. Was it enough? Her opponent lunged forward, fists flying like a storm. Clara ducked just in time, narrowly avoiding another harsh jab. It was a dizzying game of cat and mouse, her past creeping up with each swing and every retreat. Yet, with every missed punch, Clara grew bolder, more daring. She was feeling the rhythm now, joining the crowd and chanting her name. Clara! 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 The sounds reverberated through her, knitting together the confidence she desperately needed. Each exclamation was a burst of encouragement, and she was determined to show everyone, including Nick, how strong she truly was. With each swing, Clara could see fleeting images of herself training in dark gyms, battling dismissal from those who didn't believe in her. All those moments of training hard were culminating here, in this very ring. But just as she began to find her footing, a body blow landed hard against her ribs. Air rushed from her lungs, and for a moment, darkness threatened to creep in. Clara staggered backward, gasping for breath, the weight of the fight pressing intensely on her shoulders. Panic surged, mixing with the adrenaline. Was this where it all ended? Would she crumple like a paper doll in front of all those watching? But then she remembered Tara's steady gaze, her unwavering support. "You didn't come this far to back down now," her friend echoed in her mind. Clearly, she couldn't back down, not now. She was fighting for every moment that had led her here, not just for herself, but for everyone who had stood beside her in her journey. Drawing in a deep breath, Clara steadied herself. She could do this. As her opponent moved in to capitalize on her weakness, Clara met her with renewed fury. It was now or never. She countered swiftly, delivering a powerful right hook that connected squarely with her opponent's jaw. The crowd erupted, a wave of exhilaration washing over her. But as her opponent staggered, Clara's moment of triumph quickly shifted into a maelstrom of uncertainty. Nick's face hovered in her thoughts, disappointment swirling there. Would she still have his respect if she faltered? The bell rang again, signaling the end of the second round. Clara stumbled back to her corner, panting, heart racing. Tara was there in an instant, her expressions a whirlwind of encouragement and concern. "You're doing great, Clara. Just keep pushing." But doubt lingered, sifting through her confidence like sand through fingers. Could she summon the resolve to push through a final round? The glow of victory danced just out of reach. Every fiber of her being wanted to claim it, yet the fear of falling short clawed at her insides. As the third round began, the haze of exhaustion clouded her thoughts. The truth loomed larger than ever. She was fighting not just for victory, but for her own identity. Each punch was a step toward redefining that identity, one that had been buried for far too long. As Clara faced off against her opponent for the final round, one question echoed louder than the crowd. Would this fight allow her to finally break free from the shadows of her past, or would it drag her back into the very fears she was trying to escape? With that in mind, Clara raised her fists, determination igniting anew. The stakes were high, and clarity struck hard. Whatever the outcome, she was ready to embrace it all, for better or for worse. The third round began, and Clara felt the roar of the crowd echoing in her chest. It was a rush, but it was also overwhelming. Each punch thrown felt like a cheer from those who believed in her, but more pressing was the call of doubt. What if she stumbled? What if she failed? But Clara had come too far to let fear dictate her fight. She took a breath, grounding herself. She was a warrior now, not just for herself, but for every girl who had been told she wasn't strong enough. With renewed determination, Clara squared up to her opponent. The lights felt brighter and the air thicker, electric with anticipation. The crowd's chants became
anthem, infusing her limbs with energy. Clara danced forward, weaving smoothly, until she saw the opening she'd been waiting for. She threw a hard jab, followed by a sharp cross, connecting perfectly. The impact felt good, empowering. The crowd erupted. She was back, alive in the fight. Just as she started to celebrate in her mind, her opponent retaliated, landing another hit to her side that knocked the wind out of her again. Clara stumbled, but caught herself, refusing to fall. In that moment, something clicked inside her. "Keep going! Fight!" she shouted to herself, determination burning fiercer than ever. The remembering of past hardships, her family's struggles, Nick's taunts, started to melt away under the heat of her resolve. It wasn't merely about the fight anymore, it was about empowerment, growth, and belief. Clara felt the rhythm return, the tempo of the fight falling perfectly in line with her heartbeat. She dodged and weaved, not just surviving anymore, but thriving. That familiar flicker of hope surged within her again. Each punch was a step toward a better version of herself, every jab a declaration that she was enough. With every strike, Clara could feel her strength amplifying. No longer weighed down by the expectations of others, she embraced her identity as a champion for herself and her community. It was more than just physical. It was a fight for dignity, for being seen, for being heard. As the final moments of the round ticked away, Clara launched into an impressive flurry of punches. Sweat dripped down her face, but nothing felt heavier than the championship belt she had strived so hard to wear. She was fighting for it now,
not just a title, but for respect, for honor, for all those chants that rang in her ears. Clara, Clara, Clara. The bell rang, signaling the end of the bout. Clara stood in the center of the ring, breathing heavily, hands on her hips. The realization hit her like a wave. She had danced with her fears and emerged standing tall. This fight, however it ended, had transformed her. As the referee approached, she could see him raise one hand. The fight was over. The crowd erupted into cheers, and in that embrace, Clara finally understood. Their chants weren't just empty words, they were solidified faith in her growth, a community that had risen alongside her. Then came the moment, the decision. Clara held her breath as the whistle blew. The crowd hung in suspense. When they announced her as the champion, a rush of emotions engulfed her. Joy, relief, but most importantly, acceptance. She had faced her greatest challenge, not just the fight in the ring, but the struggle within. The champion belt felt right around her waist as Clara scanned the crowd. Her parents were beaming, Tara was jumping up and down, and even Nick was cheering, pride shining boldly in his eyes. The connection they shared was undeniable, more profound than any petty rivalry. She had forged her own path, and in doing so, had opened a door for a dialogue between them. Clara stepped down, the crowd enveloping her, victorious arms lifted high. She could finally take a step into the unknown, and for the first time, she wasn't afraid of falling. Transformation lay ahead, a chance to rewrite her story, with every choice being a step toward a brighter future. "Hey, Clara," Nick called out as they made eye contact through the crowd. "Great fight." His smile was genuine, no longer covering insecurity, but showing hope. "Thanks, Nick," she replied, her heartbeat steady. Finally getting the courage to approach him, she knew it was time to bridge the gap, to share her voice after all those years of silence. As the celebration continued, Clara felt the winds of change within her. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead, not as just a champion in the ring, but a champion of her own life. Now was the moment to connect with the community that had embraced her, and to invite Nick into this chapter of transformation. Together, they could transform their past into a shared story of strength, acceptance, and new beginnings. This is your moment too. You need to subscribe now to support this channel and never miss another exclusive story that inspires change. Don't wait, not even one more second. Leave a like so we can continue to feed this powerful narrative that uplifts us all. Comment your thoughts and feelings about Clara's journey. Your input matters. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need a little hope and transformation in their lives. It's time to spread the message that we all can rise together.